Economic turmoil in Sri Lanka deepens. The call for massive protest today across the nation against the worsening crisis has been made. Social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and WhatsApp are shut across Sri Lanka after a curfew was imposed till Monday, barring public movement at most places. Amidst the long hours of power cuts, widespread protests, there's no end in sight to the economic woes in Sri Lanka. The president declared a state of emergency yesterday, giving sweeping powers to security forces. Security was beefed up in Colombo after unrest grew over repeated power cuts. The Sri Lankan government has declared damages worth 39 million rupees as protests intensified, leading to vandalism.
One of the most busiest roads in the capital, Colombo, looking totally deserted, barring barely few vehicles. And all we can see on the street is only the cops or the men in uniform from the army. As the curfew has been imposed since last evening, 6 p.m. for 36 hours. And the curfew is imposed after the president order of public emergency. And moreover, this is very critical day for Sri Lanka as pan-island protest has been called out by the civil society, by the politicians, the opposition group and also the civilians. Even yesterday at the Rajpaksha Stadium there was massive protest, and this is all against the government's handling of the economy, and that has led to the massive economic crisis here in Colombo. Right behind you see the policemen guarding all these streets. No one is allowed to move out except the essential services with their identity card. No one is allowed to come out on the road. So the medical facilities, the ambulances, the police van and the fuel supplies, and barring that, no one is allowed to move on the road. We are here in Colombo, and one of the most busiest road that I see is totally looking deserted. This explains the day and also the gravity of this situation here in Sri Lanka. The government is totally cornered. Rajpaksha government facing huge criticism from the opposition, from the people, that how one family that ruled the country from presidentialship to the cabinet ministers, and that led to the massive crisis because they failed to take right decision on the right time. And now this critical economy has led to the massive crisis in the island country. With this report in Colombo, I'm Ashutosh Mishra for India Today.
So Sri Lanka crippled by the economic crisis. Right there, visuals on your screens are from Sri Lanka at the moment. There's economic turmoil brewing right there in the island nation. There is a call for massive protests across the nation today. This is against the worsening and worrying crisis that has been made. Social media platforms, you've got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp. They're all shut across Sri Lanka. Of course, they were shut after the curfew was imposed till Monday, barring public movement at most places. There have been long hours of power cuts. People are fed up of the power cuts, as you saw in the report right there. There are widespread protests that are taking place, and there is no end really in sight for the economic woes in Sri Lanka. Ashutosh Mishra is joining us live from Colombo in Sri Lanka. He's reporting on the economic crisis right there. Ashutosh, what is the mood on the ground at the moment? Because there seems to be no end in sight. The people have been going through massive power cuts as well, and the economic crisis needs a plausible resolution. And where is the resolution at the moment?
Well, as far as power, electricity supply is concerned, the power regulator of Sri Lanka has also recommended 5 hours electricity cut for the 3rd of April. As far as here the sentiments on the ground is concerned, the wide-scale protest has been called in by the civilians, by the opposition regulation. But here that you see on the streets in Colombo, the capital town, is that the paramilitary forces, the special task force, the Colombo police, everyone has been deployed here. And this is to curb on the protest that is called by the opposition alliance group, also the civil society and the people at large who have hit the street against the government over the economic policies, and that has affected and hit them really hard. As you see, the soaring prices, the soaring inflation, a cup of tea that usually costs to 30 rupees have gone up to 100 to 150 rupees. This is one of the VVIP area of Colombo where I'm standing at the moment, and there you see totally deserted after the president that orders restrictions here. And then the curfew, the 36 hours long curfew has also been imposed. As we speak, the social media platforms have also been totally curbed in, and this is to prevent the further, the outbreak of the protest, the wide-scale protests that have been called. Remember the day before yesterday, one protest that was called at the President House that led to the clashes between the police and the protesters, that led to the injury of also several policemen and also protesters. As we speak, in the remote parts of Colombo and also in other districts nearby inside this capital city, there are wide-scale protests has already started. But as far as Colombo town is concerned, several people have decided to come out of their houses and symbolically be part of the protest. So when it comes to the opposition, the civil society member or the people, they are demanding resignation from the Rajapaksa government. And the reason is only because of the deft economic policies, that the decision that took place from 2019, this economic crisis started, and now the burden is so huge that they have massive loans in $1 billion and they do not have foreign reserve to pay that loan back. And it is not only the case of the government, but subsequently it is also for the business industry, the trade industry, that even they do not have money reserved to pay their bills, and that has hit the import. Remember, a landlocked country like Sri Lanka, which is largely dependent on the imports, and they barely manufacture or produce stuff. So since they are largely dependent on the imports, they cannot bring anything back at the country, and mostly it is the fuel crisis. There you see the army deployed at the petrol pump, paramilitary forces guarding, maintaining the law and order. Since it's a huge challenge for this country, particularly last 4 years, it is affecting the people, and hence they are hitting the street, protesting, agitating.
Would you say, Ashutosh, there's fair amount of insurgency at the moment in Sri Lanka? What's the sentiment that you're picking up on that front? Ashutosh, am I audible?
Yes. Can you repeat the question, Chaiti? Because
I'm saying, would you say there is fair amount of insurgency?
Disrupted because there is no fuel supply to the mobile towers.
Yeah, I was asking if there's fair amount of insurgency. Are you picking up a fair amount of insurgency right there? You do see the protests that have erupted as well. What are you picking up on that front?
It is happening. It is happening in few pockets. We have also already started getting the information that in few pockets the protest had already started triggering. As far as the urban pocket is concerned, particularly in the capital city and the VVIP areas, it is solely guarded, and there we see the advancing and patrolling of the army vehicle, paramilitary vehicles and the police vehicles. So they have successfully contained the protest in the urban pocket. But when it comes to the rural pocket, in the villages and the small areas of across Sri Lanka, the protest has already started. In fact, 10 o'clock, what we are hearing, that people have decided to, because the social media services have been disrupted, people are using the proxy softwares, using the VPN-like softwares, and that's how they are communicating, that outside their residences they will gather and they will symbolically be part of the protest. The biggest challenge that Sri Lanka is facing today, that this should not lead to clash between the protesters and the police. In fact, the minister, the interior minister, in a press conference yesterday appealed people that do not agitate at degree and get into clash with the police, because when there was a protest at the president's house, several policemen were also injured. So this is indeed a challenging day, because in a more than 2 crore people, when they are hitting the street, obviously the government will be worried where it is leading to. But so far, the reports we are getting is it's largely the peaceful. But now the entire day is left. Let's see what happens next.
All right, we'll keep coming back to you for more on that, Ashutosh. For now, thank you very much for joining us.